Hi, everyone. I'm Gwen Callahan, the co-director of the HP Lovecraft Film Festival, and you are watching the 29th Anniversary Festival streaming edition, which goes October 18th to October 22nd. So if you're just joining us, there's still time to check up on everything that you didn't see last night. Just go to eventive.org or HPL. There'll be a URL at the end for buying passes. But I am joined today by the writer-director of Voidcaller, Nils Alatalo. Hi, Neil,
Hello.
joining us.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
So your film is just a gorgeous, gorgeous film, lushly filmed in black and white with a great score, great performances, and just gets cosmic horror. At least for me, like this movie really gets cosmic horror, and that's one of the things that we really look for at our festival, and we don't often have a lot of features that do this for us, that like get all the things, check all the boxes for us. And this year we had sort of an embarrassment of riches in that category, but Voidcaller really was a standout for us early on when we first watched it, and as part of the submission and uh, selection process. Can you tell me a little bit about, are you a Lovecraft fan? And then also how you kind of came to this story, like how this story developed for you.
Yeah, thank you for your very kind words. It warms my heart. I am a Lovecraft fan. I love his stories. I'm a big fan of Lovecraft movies as well. I think they can be a lot of fun. And um, I guess the starting point for Voidcaller being a Lovecraftian film was probably that I was kind of interested in like body snatcher movies and like pod people movies where people kind of act as puppets. And maybe just wanted to kind of make a Lovecraftian version of that. And kind of just meld those two worlds together. So that was kind of the starting point, and kind of also always had both the freedom and the restriction of doing Lovecraft, because you can use a lot of stuff from the Lovecraft universe, but there's also things like you always have to keep it in mind, so it has to be a certain thing all the time.
Sure. Yeah, there's kind of a border I think that everyone draws for themselves on
Mm,
what's Lovecraftian and what's cosmic horror, and then what's kind of on the edge or periphery of that.
yeah, like when you look up people's recommendation for like Lovecraftian films, it can be anything really. But
Sometimes I'm like, oh, really? Okay,
yeah, well, I guess.
I wouldn't I wouldn't necessarily say that, but so for the story itself, so you've got these people who are kind of being controlled by an entity, and it seems like some of them, the in particular the UFO conspiracy theory guy and the astrophysicist, who's kind of our main character that we follow, seem to have come out from under the influence of whatever this
Mm,
thing is, that they don't have their memories. um and that's interesting to me, like a kind of she has to kind of reconstruct everything while not really letting on that like something is horribly wrong with
yeah.
her mind, and also coming to grips with like, am I just crazy or did something actually happen to me? And that discovery process is pretty fun.
Mm.
What made you think of the introduction of like the experimental psychedelic drug? How did that come into play for you with the story?
Well, I guess I'm just really weak for like cool imagery in film, and it sounds like kind of cheap and whatever, but I just like stuff like Inception or something like that, where you're just watching something like a moving image and it just makes you go, wow, like never seen something like that. I think that's a really cool experience. I also drew from like low budget movies like Phantasm and Extro and stuff like that, because they like those movies obviously have no money, but they have so much fantasy that it just becomes unlimited, like the visual feast you get with those kind of things. So I guess that's why I tend to kind of use psychedelic imagery, like the what do you call it, the previous film I made was called Rave, and that was kind of very hallucinogenic as well, um, related to drugs in that way.
Okay. And then how much based in like scientific fact is uh, is that element of the story?
Like the psychedelic.
Yeah,
But not at all, not at
not
all.
at
Like
all.
drugs, I don't think they work this way at all. It's just to serve the story, and just uh, like if you introduce something like a sci-fi drug, you can just go anywhere with it. You can, like I can do what I want within the like the restraints of the budget or whatever. But it's just an excuse to um, hopefully let the viewer experience something extraordinary.
Okay, very nice. It strikes me too that there's some similarities between Lovecraft's story, The Shadow Out of Time, and
Yeah,
this story with the amnesia and then trying to piece together all of the things. It was any of that in your mind, or is that just kind of from just kind of seeping through your subconscious from having read so much Lovecraft?
yeah, both answers. Like I'm so glad that you bring it up because people ask me like which Lovecraft stories inspired you, and I have to list like them all because it's I just like you say, it just seeps in from everything, and you know that one among so many others, like just it's I can't name them all.
Like, take your pick. Um,
Yeah, but I mean maybe there's like some more obvious ones like the Colorado space or whatever.
okay.
Um, but you know, you pick like the machine from beyond, but it doesn't really do the same thing. And the trips, as you say, is like Shadow out of time, and um, you know, it just becomes everything. Cthulhu, you know, whatever.
Right, because it kind of infiltrates your brain and your sub.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, can you talk a little bit about the stylistic choices of the film? So, for example, you chose to film in, well, did you film in black and white, or did you film in color and then convert to black and white later?
We did just film in color, digital color. That's the ugly secret. But you know, we strive to make it look like 16 millimeter black and white, like Tetsuo or Eraserhead or whatever. Um, and that was like 100% because of budget. Like that's where it started. Like this, I knew this movie has to be black and white, or else we can't possibly pull it off, because you can move much quicker when you shoot in black and white, and also the post process is a bit easier. So once you make that decision, you kind of go, well, if this movie is black and white, like what is it then? Like how do we use that to our advantage, hopefully? And I have to shout out Jakob Ekvall, who was the cinematographer. Who I don't know how he did it either. I'm not saying it looks good, but it should look worse at least with the budget we had.
I think it looks fantastic, and I was kind of surprised by how effective a lot of the pretty simple things, I mean, simple but sophisticated shots that were in the film. So, for example, when she's seeing her sister, what she thinks is her sister behind the plastic sheet
Mm.
curtains, and then it kind of, you know, like there's like a swish, and you're like, what was that? That's very,
Yeah,
it seems like it would be very simple to shoot, but it's so effective in
yeah,
the the you know
yeah.
the
It's just a cut. Like it's like 100-year-old technique, but it's still works. So
I'm curious how much of that kind of technique you found yourself using versus like any digital After Effects or in the post-production?
Yeah, it's like a mix of both, but when I did use digital effects, I tried to use them in like a pretty like um, what's the word, like a
Low key.
practical, like a low key, like physical version of it. Like I tried to have more like a cut and paste approach. Like I didn't want any grand digital effects because that's not, it can look great and it can fit a film. I'm not back talking CGI, but maybe not for this one. So I like never opened After Effects or anything. Like all the effects we did were like in the timeline of the editing, and as much as possible keeping it practical, especially the more like the gore, the like those effects
Mhm.
are pretty much all practical.
Okay. And then there's the shot with when we see her sister, like trying to remember if we ever see like her features, but you see like her outline and then you see
Yeah,
her out, like how did you accomplish that? I was like, did he do a paper cutout? Is that like a just an effect? Like how did you do that?
yeah, that's actually in camera. It's a trick I stole from David F. Sandberg, who did the Lights Out.
Mm.
The Swedish horror director, or previous horror director at least. He has a wonderful YouTube channel where he talks a lot about how he makes stuff. And he had this approach of using reflective tape as eyeballs or pupils. So that's straight out of what he did for Lights Out, and it really works. So thanks, David. um, but that whole like costume as well, because she's just a silhouette. That's a budget thing, of course. I had no idea how that sister figure would actually look until we threw some rags at her and fixed the hair and just, oh yeah, looks better than I hoped. Good.
Good. It seems like in independent filmmaking, a lot of things are kind of done on the fly or end up from happy accidents, just
Yeah.
something to fall into place the right way.
Yeah, you try to make plans, but um, I think maybe in both no budget filmmaking and but all filmmaking really, it's just filmmaking is just constant problem solving because nothing ever works really. You have to just fix everything to make it okay at least. So you just have to plan as much as you can and then just roll with it.
Nice. And in mentioning kind of like the overall look and feel of the film, like the sound design is really a big part of what makes everything kind of move along and be creepy as well. Can you talk a little bit about your approach to the sound design?
Yeah, try to give it a lot of character as much as possible and like make it fit in with the whole idea of like radio signals and broken analog transmitter equipment. So kind of once again that very like practical analog style. I worked with Joakim Martinsson who did the music. Um, and he always in the beginning gave me so very like beautiful horror music, and I said no, it has to sound like rusty and noisy, and so that's how we kind of worked it out together. There's a lot of people who says like it sounds like old sci-fi movies and stuff like that, which is great. That's kind of what we were going for. So yeah, that was the idea. That was kind of the idea visually as well. Like Gothenburg, where we filmed it, doesn't really look like the world in Voidcaller. We just chose like the most rundown, rusty industrial landmarks we could find.
Interesting. I'm glad that you brought that up because it really does feel kind of like out of another time. And
Oh yeah.
was telling Brian, like, we gotta go to this place. It looks really cool.
Yeah. I'm sorry, you won't find it.
I can look really hard. Where's the back alley to film?
Yeah, yeah, right, right. No, it's not a great commercial for Gothenburg, but it's kind of the Tetsuo or Eraserhead influence I was talking about.
Mhm.
Just I think that stuff looks really good in black and white for some reason. Like the more grain and stuff you put on it, like industrial rundown environments, it's pleasing.
Mhm. I think it's maybe we were used to seeing photographs, like photography exhibitions, or at least I am,
Mm.
of like old rundown, derelict buildings, and it seems like they're always in black and white, and so
Yeah, that's a
it's
good point.
more, I think maybe it's easier, I think, to leave behind your preconception of like what this is going to be when it's out of the ordinary. So we're used to seeing the world in black and white, and you see this film and or we're used to seeing the world in color, and then suddenly you're presented with something in black and white, and it's very easy to relate it back to the things like old sci-fi movies, The Twilight Zone, things like
Mm.
that. And
Right, right.
and
Yeah.
they're very sort of like a sense memory, I guess, for me, at least of any of us who grew up like watching old black and white horror movies and things like that. I think it's very evocative
Mm.
of that environment. And then it's easy to kind of just be like, okay, I'm watching a movie. I'm in this story. And it's easier to just kind of focus on it and be transported to that world.
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
Oddly.
And it's also like I watched Night of the Living Dead the other day, and it's insane how good that movie looks still. Like if when you pull off black and white, it's like timeless and something special.
Yeah. It I hope that Voidcaller lasts the test of time. I think it will. I think it's been around
Yeah.
for a long time. I had one. I could talk to you about so many things, but I think we covered most of the stuff that our fans would like to know. Like, are you a Lovecraft fan? And was this on purpose? Yes, it's all true. We do have a Discord. If you haven't joined that, you can interact with people there, and sometimes people ask questions about stuff in chat. But my last question for you is with it seemed like a lot of the film was actually in English because the lead character, like the scientist, is American. Was that something that you had written into the script, or is that something that evolved out of casting?
No, no, that's totally um, thought out. What's the word?
Like
Um,
it was planned in advance.
yeah, yeah, right, right. The actress Marie is Swedish.
Okay.
Uh, and I hope she does a good American accent. I have no idea,
I
but
didn't notice. I was fooled.
yeah, that's great. Uh, but like Voidcaller is a very weird film in the Swedish landscape. We don't really have much of these kinds of films. We're starting to get some horror now, which is a lot of fun, but it's maybe not, like weird Lovecraftian horror. So um, I had my suspicions that, for example, the American audience would be a bit more welcome to this kind of film. Um, so it was kind of a way to let just give Voidcaller a bit of a broader audience, maybe more internationally. Um, and also maybe there's hopefully like a feeling that if you're out of country and something bad happens, it's so much worse and more confusing than if you're um, at home where people speak your own language and you have more like knowledge of how culture and how things work. So that was also a part of it, like just alienating the main character a bit more.
Okay. I did notice that having lived abroad myself and been in situations where I had to call the police one time.
Mm.
And it is very, it just makes it, it's just like another layer of complication and another layer of like trauma that you have
Mm.
to
Right. Yeah.
after, because there's the language barrier and then there's the cultural barrier as well. Like, um, and for her, I think it was actually a nice way to show just how resilient and how resourceful and like driven she is, that she didn't let any of that stop her. She just kept, she basically found this the research, the experimental research scientist, and like
Yeah,
made
yeah,
him help
she
her.
gets shit done. And she's a
Yeah.
very focused character. She's just like an arrow.
Yeah, I really admire her. Like,
Yeah.
she's very organized mind and just kind of like, okay, this is what I need to do to get this done. Um, I thought we were running out of time. We actually have a few more minutes, and
Mm.
hopefully people will ask some things in the chat right now. But um, casting my mind back, can you talk about a little bit about the production design itself, like the spaces you used and the props, the choices of the props, and like the transmitter box being kind of like something that looks sort of ordinary, but then is going to be used for something fantastical.
Yeah, that was a headache designing that thing. Like we didn't have any production designer or set designer at all. That was just me and my friends really hammering out, the best props we could and whatever. And there is like a logic to that thing, the transmitter. I know it can be like really confusing just watching the movie. I'm not very technical with radio stuff, but hopefully there's some logic to it. And again, just trying to make things like if it's metal, just make it like greasy and old and rusty, and when it produces sounds, just have it be, like noises and buzzing and stuff like that. So yeah, like whatever you do when you do a film, you're just trying to keep it in like the same style and the same like tone. Like tone control can be quite difficult when you're making a movie, and um, like you do your best to just make the film have style, um, as well as substance, of course. But so yeah, that's the tricky part with not having anyone that's like you're the prop master. You make this. You just have to kind of hope that it works.
Yeah. So if you had to list out all of the jobs that you had on your production, how
Oh
long
my
is
God. Oh, geez. I didn't have a starring role. I didn't do any music. Uh, and that would probably be some of the things I didn't do at any point.
okay? So
Uh, you
shorter to
know,
list what you didn't do.
yeah, exactly. If we didn't have enough people, I would do the clap.
Mhm.
I would do sound if I needed to. Um, I did basically all the post-production really. Um, I'm hoping to have someone help me a bit with sound mix, for example, later on, and stuff like that I can't do myself really. But I guess I am a bit of a micromanager, maybe.
I was gonna ask, do you feel like you have an enjoyment of like being able to kind of have control over all of these things, or is there a point where you just wish somebody else could do it for you?
Yeah, look, it's both. Like I'm dead. I'm so tired from these 3 years of making this film. But at the same time, it's like because I'm not part of any studio and I don't have a production company except for my own behind me. So if I like, I can do whatever I want, and if I like want a reshoot, I can just pick up a camera and go shoot it myself. So that is a freedom in one way, even though not having money is limited.
Mhm.
So it's both.
Okay. Nice. Um, we didn't really talk about, so I talked a lot about the main character. So some of the side characters I thought were interesting that there was also another woman who seemed to be kind of I don't know, in charge, but the maybe the main arm of the puppet. I guess if we're talking about people as being puppeted,
Yeah, right.
she seemed like the kind of the main puppet. And it seems like there's an interesting kind of character arc for her, and that she, I don't know, maybe ends up as like a more of a neutral force or a force for good at the end rather than
Mm,
trying to trying to help this entity come into the world. Is
mm.
that a correct reading on that?
Yeah, sure. There's like there is this theme in the movie about uh, you know, realizing your wrongs in some way and trying to fix what you helped break in a way. Um, and yeah, I see her story as some sort of, um, too late retribution in some way. The best that she could manage, at least.
Interesting. And with the memory loss, is that like a theme for you, a common theme for you, or just in this film?
No, this is the first. Once again, I just thought it would be like a interesting play on the um, body snatcher idea, like in like movies like Invasion of the Body Snatchers or whatever. You're kind of watching the pandemic unfold, and you're watching people come under control. I just thought it would be an interesting idea to see what happened after. You know, when like people wake up and they're like, "Oh, what
Mhm.
happened?" What if you go from there, but you don't know, you have no idea what you did, so you're gonna have to backtrack your steps. That was kind of the idea with the whole memory loss thing, to just play on the body snatcher element.
Okay. It's interesting to me too that the memory loss element for most of your characters is a negative thing.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think some people would be okay with just like, well, I lost a month, but my life isn't so great, or I'm not such a great person. Maybe that's okay.
Yeah, they probably shouldn't poke around in it too much. They would be fine. But uh, that is also the Lovecraftian element of knowing too much, and your kind of mind not being able to handle certain information. So it is kind of a blessing, not knowing that you were part of the Voidcaller conspiracy, and I don't think everyone would be able to handle that knowledge.
Sure.
So it goes both ways.
With the so something also that we've noticed in Lovecraft is that he tends to have like a pairing of like two characters where one is kind of the authority figure, like a professor, and then the other one is sort of a subordinate, like the student. So like the Statement of Randolph Carter or the Hound,
Mm,
or even like From Beyond, if you're stretching a little, where there's one person who's really driven and one person who's just kind of along for the ride because they have nothing better going on, or
mm.
they're a problem person.
Yeah,
And I
maybe
see,
the shunned house, maybe.
yeah, maybe, and I see sort of shades of that in your film as well. So
Yeah,
and
that's interesting.
that's another thing that kind of seeped into the
Well, I did think about like the because Lovecraft loves his academics and his know-it-alls. Maybe I wasn't as interested in that part. Like we don't know a lot about these people. Um, we do know that our main character is an astronomical researcher, so that is an academic work, I suppose. But she doesn't wear a suit and tie, at least.
and I get, she's not technically in charge of anyone, but she acts like she is, which I love.
Mm, yeah, right. That's true. That's true.
And thank you for having two strong female characters in your film.
Oh, yeah. Well, Uh, I can't say you're welcome. That would be weird, but it's yeah. I don't know. I don't know what that's about. I, it just fits maybe.
I think it really gives it something different. You know, we're so used to seeing films about just all men running around and doing science, and it was
Mm,
really refreshing for me to see like not only one woman, but then to find out that her sister is also a researcher, and that
mm,
they were both in, you know, hard science. And uh, when we talk about like astrophysics or astronomical research, like most people haven't been exposed to that, and so it does sound like wow. And we also have a friend who is literally a rocket scientist. Like she worked for
oh,
JPL,
really?
the
Awesome.
magnetometers and things like that. And when she would talk about her research, she'd be very animated and very excited. And I'd be like, I have like this much concept of what you're talking about. So
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's kind of maybe a part of the like the why I didn't approach the academic part of it as well, because I know nothing about astronomical research. Like the character needed to be it to make the story make sense, but I couldn't tell you a thing about space, you know.
nice. um, I'm sure there's books. Brian has recommended me a couple of books over the years.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten to them yet, but someday, someday I will. But it does seem right now with we just had a supermoon here in Portland. I don't know if it was everywhere, and then there was like the aurora borealis activity that was happening in
Mm.
the northern hemisphere, and I don't know if you got any of that as well. Um,
Mm.
we had some amazing colorful displays, particularly like in Ohio and New York State, like Maine, I think. And we, of course, didn't see any of it here because it was too overcast and cloudy.
All
Um,
right.
but then there's also a comet that went overhead. I think the night of our VIP party for the festival, like October 3rd, there's a comet that went by, and or a meteor, a giant meteor. And then there's also this second moon. Like there's like a big um I'm like heavenly body, but it's like a big
Mm.
thing. I guess it's a meteor or something, that an asteroid that's passing close enough that you can't really see it with the naked eye, but it's basically mirroring the orbit of our moon. So we have like two moons right now.
Mm.
So it's
That's
really
just like the thing about space is that it's so crazy. It's like insane concepts, and like just looking at things in space or from space or whatever, can't really like you can't really understand space, and that's why it's so great for cosmic horror, because it doesn't make sense really, and it's also really beautiful and strange and weird, and it's perfect for this kind of stuff.
Mhm. And it's that whole like I'm just a speck of dust on a ball hurtling through space, and there's
Yeah, right, that too.
all these things around us that like how it's a miracle that we're still here.
Yeah, there are a few shots of a character in space in Voidcaller in a trip, and I always like try to keep her as tiny and small as I possibly could without her. Like you still have to be able to see her, you know. But I totally know what you mean.
Well, awesome. I sorry, I just got the high sign of like, okay, it's time.
Yes.
I'm just gonna check one thing, make sure nobody um is there any other? Nope. Okay, those are all just comments. Well, someone in the Discord chat said I loved how the scientist lab set was basically plastic sheeting, but it kind of it adds to the vibe because it makes everything much more mysterious. Like it makes you want to know like what's in there, what's it got in there.
Yeah, yeah, and it also makes it not look like a lab at all, like just a half finished or half demolished lab or whatever. But it's just one of those great no budget tricks. Like if you hang plastic sheets everywhere, you have a set, and it's so easy.
or a kill room.
Yeah, yeah, right. Can double.
Well, what's next for you? Are you working on anything currently, or are you just kind of trying to wrap up Voidcaller and the festival run?
Yeah, it's a lot of festival stuff right now. I do some freelance stuff in the Swedish film industry as well. I'm hoping to have some new horror projects up and running soon, but a bit too late to tell.
Niels, where can people find you on the internet if they'd like to follow along and see what you're working on?
I think the best place would be my name, Nils Alatalo, at Instagram. I try to be active there and post fun stuff. Also, always horror related.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out of your evening to join us and talk to me. It was really great to meet you. We were really hoping you were going to be able to come to the festival, so I'm glad
Yeah,
that this opportunity to talk and give our audience a little more insight into the film. It's fantastic. It is Void Color is still streaming right now through October 22nd, which is Tuesday. So if you haven't seen it yet, please do check it out and go follow Nils Alatalo on Instagram and poke him out every now and then to make another horror. Give him encouragement.
yeah. Thank you. This was a lovely conversation, so much fun, and thank you to everyone who's watching and who's watched the Voidcaller and who's just a part of this festival. I love you guys.
Oh, well, we love you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.